So it's recording now.
Okay. Do we have to check the sound?
That was the
check for sound?
Yep.
Okay, that was the big techno speak.
Lights, camera,
Okay, Scorsese.
action.
Okay, go for it.
Scorsese and Spike Lee.
Oh,
All
okay.
in one package.
Oh, sorry.
Gotta have the biracial going at all times.
Thank you. Yes. What was I thinking?
At all times.
Yep. Welcome to our household.
Indeed. Welcome to our abode, y'all.
Yep.
What's going on? Peace, it's your man, SoulMan IT. This is Mama Soul.
Also known in Arabic as Idasa.
Yep. Arabic and Swahili, since my name is Swahili.
Okay.
And is mother in Arabic. We're off to a great start.
Yes, we are.
This is part 2 of the podcast. So like the first part really was just supposed to be one episode and me interviewing my mother, which turned into my mother talking to us.
Okay, to be fair, you asked a loaded question. What was I supposed to do? I didn't know that there was a limit.
Just give me half of the laundry load.
You're going to feel guilty.
Just a tad bit.
Just saying.
Tad bit.
Okay.
So that was part 1. I'll be chopping that. I mean, y'all will see it in its totality by the time this is up. But yes, that'll be part 1. And she wanted to do part 2, in which I'm the subject, which totally threw me for a surprise.
Hello. Have you met me before? Come on. Okay.
I have your remote.
To be fair, that was for 2 reasons. One, turn it out as fair play. I get to torture you now. Hey. Mm-hmm. And secondly, yeah, I wanted to get, because the whole point of us talking was to have a conversation. And to the extent that there were some pretty loaded or heavily laden topics, mm-hmm. I didn't feel like just sort of glossing over, so I wanted to also make sure we got your take on stuff.
I kind of want to fix the lighting, too. Just while this
Do you want to do that?
Nope, you can keep talking.
Okay, then how am I supposed to ask you a question if you're out of the screen?
You just asked.
Okay, that's like a lighter ambient. Oh my word, is this what we're going to do? Okay, this is where they're going to say you should have figured this out.
10 times better.
They're going to say you should have figured this out long before you started the whole thing going.
Yeah, before I looked like I was glowing red like a Oompa. Oompa. Yeah, okay. Look at this.
Okay, your thingy just fell.
Oops.
Okay, so let's we're real big on Fiverr in this household, in case you couldn't tell.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, now are you ready to answer my questions?
Yep.
Okay, are you going to do it with a tude like that? Are you going to micromanage the entire time?
It's rich coming from you.
Okay. As you can tell in our household, we've always been quite verbal and articulation of one's thoughts and feelings were never really in short supply.
I have no way to sit like a podcaster.
Okay. Knock it off or I'm going to start smacking you. Yesterday I spoke about cancer and how it impacted me and the family through the last 30, 40 years. Because my cancer may have started in 2016, 2017, but cancer starts way earlier than that with both your father and your sister. With that being said, I don't want to necessarily focus my question on just cancer. It can be just generic health issues. What's your take on the health stuff and how it's played out in our family? Like, what sense do you make of it? How do you see it? How don't you see it? Like, I always have told people, when I woke up and knew I could have died, because I could have died. Hello. My attitude was, your sister died of cancer, your father was going to die of cancer unless something else took him. Allahu Allah. And for me, I had a virtual death sentence. And my attitude was, were you going to think you had like a target on your back? And I don't know if that's fair to even ask you. I don't want to put a thought there that wasn't there.
Am I going to get like cancer type thing?
Or whatever. How do you make sense of the cancer as it affected your family? And how do you see it in terms of you? However you choose to answer that. I will not put any limitations on the response.
Okay. So can I answer?
Yes, you can now. I'm putting the paper down. See? Go for it.
There was like, at some point, because of me being born in July, and my, what do you call it, sign is Cancer.
Your zodiac sign.
I was like,
there you go.
Well, that sucks. You talk about a target on your back. It's like, it's like a sign on your back.
Mm-hmm. Ding, 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 ding.
Instead of saying kick me, it says cancer. Cancer me. Allah forbid. But I don't know. I've like, Nasima got cancer and died of that. Baba had 3 cancers. 4, sorry. You caught cancer. So I was just like, okay. And I guess I made peace with it at some point. Like, if it's in the cards, it's in the cards. I've wrestled with my own mortality in a few different ways. One as an activist, where it's like, at one point I was like, I could die in the streets protesting something and be like walking home and get caught off guard by folks type thing. I tend to not put myself in situations, I would like to think, where I'm hanging around the wrong crowd type of deal, where it's just like death is inevitable type of thing. With the exception of like when I used to smoke and drink and you're out at a party or atmosphere where that's acceptable. Then just doing that and likening your chances of catching something physically.
But to be fair, even if you weren't out in that kind of environment, as you always told me, you walk out your door every day.
Mm-hmm. And there's the possibility that you can like die.
Yeah. And that's not something that the regular white person has to think about.
No, it is. Saying. Where it depends. Again, it depends on your proximity to things and where you're at.
Okay.
Like when I say the wrong crowd, I mean like you're in, there's like places where you can go where it's like people are way more aggressive. They're way more likely to hit you with something or shoot you or something like that. And then there's just your average aggression level. Like for some folks who aren't around the aggression stuff, then it's like it's not commonplace. For me, especially when you're in a city, when you're around people who are not just broke, but broke in as well as broke. And we all have off days and bad days, but it's like everybody's bad day is going to look different. And you don't want to be the thing that breaks the camel's back. You don't want to. You don't want to be somebody's trigger.
Yep.
To where they want to break you, or they pull out their trigger and they do whatever. Doesn't mean you can't handle yourself. It just means you try to avoid things that you might deem as unnecessary. So I mean that's one way of looking at the mortality. When it comes to the cancer stuff, though, I always thought I would die like in other different ways. Not that I was wishing it, but that it wouldn't happen that kind of a way. If that answers your question. I know it's a loaded.
No, when you say you didn't think it would be that way because you see cancer as something that's normally of longer duration, and you thought it would be a death by violence. Is that what you're implying?
Death by violence, yeah. You can say that.
So even like, were you thinking cardiac? Were you thinking any of that stuff either? Other generic health?
Like it's there, but focus really isn't on that. It's like, again, like, it's where I'm at now. There's like, you're not hearing gunshots every night, but you are hearing them monthly. You're hearing them, especially when it's the summertime and things are hot, or it's around the holidays or something like that, or it's around when folks get paid and stuff like that, so there's more money that's flowing. Like, there's different things that'll contribute to an uptick in that, and so that'll make you way more aware. I mean, being in the city, I would hope folks are aware, if they're not from the city, but like, being in the city makes you just more aware of things in general. And you're, as Baba would used to say, like, gotta be alert, man. Gotta be alert at all times. And so that alertness would be there. But yeah, not really thinking of. I didn't think I was gonna make it past, like, in my 30s. Like, the fact that I'm 37, alhamdulillah. Never thought I'd be at 37.
Okay.
And the times I've dealt with depression and stuff, especially, like, you're looking for reasons to live in a lot of different ways. And even if you're not even trying to go the depression route, it's not like you can see where the light at the end of the tunnel is in a lot of different ways, especially like when you're around folks that don't even believe in that. And it's more like you just doing the grind every day type of deal. And literally the only light at the end of the tunnel is like your dreams, like your dream or dreams being accomplished, and essentially tunnel vision, where it's like that is the light by all means necessary, by any means necessary, and either it happens or it doesn't.
And that's what gets you through the day during those moments?
I would say so. I mean, it gets me by. I don't know if it really does get me through. Because it's. I think when I, like, in leaving the Berg and coming here, and just visiting, like, it's like when we were touring with One Hood from 2014 to up until Baba died, 2017. And you see how other people live. So, like, when we went to Baltimore, or when we had went to Philly, like, when you see poverty that's worse than yours, and you're seeing more folks sleeping. Like, when we pulled in with the bus here, like, there's way more folks homeless than any other year I've been here. And, like, like tent cities and stuff, like, you just never saw that. You never saw tent encampments here like that. You'd see folks here and there, but, like, you just get reminded of things. Yeah, you just get reminded of where things are at, where you could be at any time, any moment. Like, we're all just one paycheck away from being out there, is really how one could look at it.
Is that one of the things that's hardest to see in the Binghamton area, the changes like that?
Yeah, because it's gotten worse. Like,
and why do you think that is?
I would say that really, like, little to no opportunities that, like, seeing folks that you went to school with in that situation, like, where they become fiends or snaps, or they just homeless outright. And because, like, when you last saw them, it wasn't like that. And there might have been, like, decades that have went by. And then you see them, like, we was going out to the dentist this morning, and saw the one kid from around the way that I went to college with, and he just was like, "Whoa!" And it's not like we're seeing each other like in some like movie scenario or something like that. It was just
It's the visual. It was visual drive-by.
yeah, like just
It was jarring to see him, just to see him, but then to see him how he was.
see his state and conditioning. You could tell he got a family.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know the dynamics of it. But it was just that, like, it's you're seeing folks that are in desperation and desolate, and you're wondering, like, damn, like what what could change this stuff? And there really isn't like jobs or opportunities all like that out here, where basically money could change one's, not just their vantage and perspective, but like their condition.
What have you seen happening from a job standpoint here? How has it changed in the times when you lived here versus the times now?
Mad stuff is closed. Like, coming back this time, the mall now has things there, but it doesn't look like a mall, really. Like, when you go to, like, when you compare Oakdale Mall of what it used to look like to the Vestal Town Square Mall, like, those look like malls. I don't know how Vestal looks, if it still looks the same. If it does, bravo. Like, whereas basically there's like storefronts of different stores, and there's a parking lot in the middle somewhere, and then there's other stores across the parking lot, and meaning someone can drive in and do a whole bunch of shopping there, and money is spent, and there's different types of jobs that are there.
And the
Retail,
stores are open, and there
the
are
stores are
people.
open,
There are people in the parking spaces.
yeah, it's like it's an active mall versus Oakdale. Like, just seeing like a third of the joint on one side, Dave and Buster's, then on the other third it's whatever the hell it is,
Dick's House of Sports.
Dick's House of Sports and Goods, and BJ's, and there's just like, where's the other stores that like were in between the main stores? Like,
Yeah.
you know how like when you go to a mall, there's like the big storefronts,
Yeah.
and then in between each of those storefronts, there's at least like 3 or 4 outlets.
Yeah.
And you don't see that.
And they'll say probably that's because of people buying everything online.
That's a part of it, but like, there are still malls that are open because they've had to change and adapt, and they did it properly. Like,
Which would mean what? Like, what would it include, or what would it look like?
there's gonna be things that, like, as we're growing, that you're gonna outgrow, but for one thing, movie theaters, like the fact that the movie theater left Oakdale Mall, horrible move for the mall, like, and not replacing it with another theater, something that when people are there, you're not just forcing them to come in and go out to just buy and shop, right? Like, when you think of Town Square Mall, there's the theater that's in the middle of the mall, and so on the other side is you got Walmart and all the other stores up into the theater. Then on the opposite side of that, you got the other stores up until Sam's Club. So you got 2 major outlets, and then you have little mini outlets in between, and so you can get different types of shopping done there, or you can go there, watch a movie, and then after you're done watching the movie, you can go ahead and shop, right, or vice versa. There's a way that you can chop it up. There's things
Plus,
to do.
they have places you can sit and eat.
Yeah.
And they also have the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes, you can sit and eat, you can look and browse, and it's more, you don't just go in, go out type of church with a dag under your arm.
Yeah, like the mall, when Oakdale was Oakdale and we used to go, like, that's how it was. It was just indoor, and in my opinion, gave a way better feel and vibe than Town Square Mall. No shot to Town Square, but like just being inside, especially on rainy days or cold days, like you're able to walk around and go to the different places. There used to be the arcade in there. There used to be the theater in there. There,
Ice cream.
ice cream, right? Different ice cream spots and friendlies, right?
Mm-hmm.
The different pagodas in the middle that you could go to, and the pagodas weren't like crazy, but like they were still things that you could do while you're going to different stores. There was always something that you could do. You could stop in the middle of things. They didn't get to the point of having like a cafeteria or mess hall like you would see at other malls, or a food court rather. Like that would have been cool. The one downtown, the Metro Center, like that. Good example of when you put a food court in there, because we used to go there.
Yep.
In high school to eat.
Yep.
But like taking things like that out, you don't really give folks things to do. So now it's just like, okay, well, we can go there now to the mall to do, rock climbing at Dick's and whatever else there. But like that's no one. I can't see folks saying let's meet up and let's go there.
And how often are you going to do that?
That or Dave and Buster's. Like there's not really too many choices of things to do, and like you got to start somewhere. So I get that.
That you actually had to even explain to me what Dave and Buster's was.
Yeah, I mean.
So in terms of like name familiarity.
Because we never had a Dave and Buster's out here.
No. No. And I'm glad, honestly, I'm glad for anything being in the mall, because it was a wasteland for the longest time. And one of the things that's there now, there are two things that are there. Some of the county offices are in there now, just to take up some space, yay. And they probably got a better deal than where they were at for the county buildings that they were renting. And the other thing is one of the major health providers actually has their, I want to say like a gym physical therapy site there. So you can go get your TTOT, and it includes a tool and stuff like that. So it's almost like, I don't want to say it's a competition to the Y, because it isn't. I mean, it's meant to provide, and you can get actual membership there if you want, or you can be there as a patient, and it combines both. So that's the kind of thing where I think what you're speaking to is, at least with the way the mall was set up in the past, and I'm not saying things can't change over time, it could be family friendly depending on how you define family. It could be your teenagers went there just to hang out all day, and you didn't necessarily have just shopping. You could sit there in the middle of the mall and spend some time over here where you could in fact eat or get something to drink and just sit there with your friends. Families could be there, a couple could be there, a single parent could be there. It would be someplace you could bring your kid and entertain them. In our case, I would always do it as a thank you to you and your father, that like if I was just on call the week before, okay, next week it's just the two of us, we're going to the mall to do something together. And we kind of established a routine. There were stores I wanted to go to, there were places you wanted to go to, and it was sort of like the routine piece of it was nice to me, in my perspective. I'm not just there to die, and I don't have to die, but at least the places, there were options that you had multiple options and not just one or two. I feel badly for small businesses now, in the sense of how do you break through the chatter of the net? When people can sit there and Google search and go for the cheapest price. And I appreciate money is tight.
See, I don't think, this is going to be a crazy hot take, I don't always blame the internet for why retail is down. And the reason why is, before the internet, stores were sucking at filling their stores with meaningful things to buy.
Agreed.
That's not the internet's fault.
I agree.
So like when Amazon came out, when eBay came out, and like if we're looking for specific things
Yep.
that you can't get or you have to drive 2 towns over to get,
Yep.
and you don't have the means to go get it.
Yep. Agreed.
Right?
No.
Like,
And that's where the internet is a godsend. Agreed. Yep.
It's the internet to me is awesome.
Yep.
It's when it's come to the retail part of it, there are different things that could be more awesome and more in favor of like the infrastructure and delivery fees and just fees in general, and the cost of entry could be a lot easier to navigate. There's not like a manual that folks a one-stop shop manual that folks can go to, especially when you're in the land of subjectivity, and then like there's like 1,000 authors that have a guidebook of how you should use the internet and how you could sell online and this. Like, it makes anybody who's trying to break into it feel like a fish out of water, and it just could be better. In that sense, it's just. Yeah, stores didn't learn how to adapt. The malls didn't learn how to adapt. Like, the malls are competing with an Amazon to a degree. But what they highly underestimate, like when I need like cords or things that I could just order offline, I could just go to Amazon or eBay, I will check if the Target down the street from me has it.
Mm-hmm.
I will check if other stores that are in walking distance or even a bus distance have it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll go a town or neighborhood or two over. And yes, it's inconvenient having to pay and spending maybe 3 hours just traveling via public transit to and from. But it's like, I still
want to support the brick and mortar.
I want to support the brick and mortar. I want to spread money around.
Mm-hmm.
I want money to go to folks that I can actually see. Like, when you spend the money online, you don't necessarily know if it's going, who it's going to, where it's going, how it's being divvied up. Not that I need to know how my $30 headphones are being divvied up in the electronics store. Mm-hmm. Like, but it going to Target and getting my headphones and getting the microphone for the podcast back home, and then bringing it home and opening the box up, as opposed to it being, just shipped from this place, and it's thrown on an Amazon truck, and then or USPS truck, and it's just delivered. But yeah, that's a long answer.
No, that's fine. I mean, I appreciate that you're sort of, we're sort of talking nostalgia about what was
And it
before.
gets me out of the house.
And there's something to be said for that, which a lot of folks learned with COVID. A lot of folks didn't have the luxury of being housebound. But for folks who were housebound, the walls can sort of come in on you. I want to come to that, because you did reference the whole thing in terms of depression. What could we, from your own perspective and vantage point, and I think you've been very vocal in some of your posts and stuff. I'll wait till you swallow.
I did. Pause.
What do you think we could do better? For those who know you specifically, or for us as people who maybe have loved ones, what could we do better when we think somebody may have issues with depression, or with mental health, or with stress, or the walls seem to be coming in on them? What's your take on that?
I can answer.
Okay.
I think I can't speak for the rest of the world. I can speak for the North American way, the United States way of things. And that is, most folks I know are depressed and deal with stress and deal with things that will bring you down, different lows. I think everyone deals with them differently, and there is a lack of community, togetherness, whether small or large, that is not there, where it's able to lift some of that off for folks. So like because the issues that happened during COVID, it wasn't COVID's fault. They were there before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And all COVID did was put everybody into a confined space and made you have to deal with it in that space.
Magnified it and made you couldn't avoid it.
No different than the internet. It doesn't, or when you give someone a big bag of money, the money doesn't change them. You are who you are. And it just exacerbates or magnifies who
Yep.
you are.
Yep.
So it was like people were sad and depressed because of jobs, because of where you live, because of family issues and traumas unresolved, because of a breakup or a relationship, because friends growing apart, and just things that we've dealt with as humans for a long ass time. But the way that we kind of have this, we don't, some of the things that made us who we are as Americans, as North Americans, as United States citizens, we don't have some of that seasoning in sauce anymore. We don't care about the past in a way where where you can't learn from it. We get too nostalgic about stuff way too often, and we like to glorify in our own way the past while disrespecting those who actually come from it. And well, it's like looking at, like when people use Malcolm X's "by any means necessary," some of them don't come from that time period when they say it, nor do they have anybody that does come from that time period that can speak to that and then raise you off of that. Like if you've heard that all your life, then you've heard it from folks from the movement, from the city, from all that. It hits way different, rather than someone at corporate America, whatever, saying we have to do what we have to do, y'all, by any means necessary. Just like Malcolm said, it's just like it's not. The context is not there. Mm-hmm. Like and it's total opposite in a lot of different ways. And so these different movements that we have, whether it's on the left, whether it's on the right, whether it's in the middle, whether it's wherever, they're so removed from what made them in the first place. And I'm saying that because when we're saying like, what can we do better about depression? Listen. We could listen to folks. We could stop being afraid of people. Like, we can have a measure of self-awareness and be sure about what we are aware of when it comes to ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like, be absolutely sure about yourself. And there's things that you may not know about yourself, and that's fine. But you do know what you do know. And sadness on your face looks very similar to sadness on someone else's face. Anger, all these different expressions and stuff, they look pretty similar. So you can be able to tell when someone's a bit off. Mm-hmm. You can tell when someone's like off, like way off, like they about to go postal, right? You can. It's because we'll see it and then we're just like, oh, they got that, and you just leave them and let them be. And then when they become a headline, we're like, oh my God, how did that happen? It's like, shut up, you know how that happened.
Yeah.
What do you? It's like, what could I have really done about it? And then pray that you never end up in that situation. Like, most folks got something to say about the homeless person, but ain't nobody ever had to stand out front of a gas station and ask for money before. Or go into a gas station and you 7-Eleven and you asking for a free bowl of chili with the crackers, and that's your meal. Like, try to be that person. There was a meme that was on Facebook. I don't know if it's true or not, but it hit me. I thought it was good. And it was a pastor who was about to be a new pastor at a church. And he went to the church that he's supposed to become the pastor at, but he dressed up as a homeless dude.
Good for him.
Right? And he's there at this I don't know how big the church was, but he's there at the church.
To see how they are.
To see how they was going to react. And so he's asking for money, asking for food, everybody looking at him.
Aww.
Downplaying him, all this. And no one gave him food, no one gave him money. They acted like he wasn't there, he got looks. He was scolded. He sat in the front.
That must have been an interesting first coming to the church officially.
I'm sure it was.
Wow.
He sat in the front. Someone asked him to sit in the back, right? So then, when the service getting started, people doing doing their talking, doing their speech, and then they had said, "We want to bring up our new pastor, Pastor so and so," and so the homeless-looking guy is walking all the way from the back.
Good for him.
Slow walking up.
Good for him.
And then everybody stopped clapping.
Good for him.
And then he started. I forget the passage that he had. And you Bible followers just put it down in the bottom. But he was spitting the passage in which he was saying, and if a person is hungry, you feed them, and if the person has no money, then you do this, and if they have no shelter, then you know.
There's actually sorry to interrupt. There's actually an incredibly effective commercial. I'm not sure which Christian denomination has put this out there, so forgive me for that. But it speaks to that issue, but you don't know until the end that that's kind of the head. And it shows people in the here and now, so it's very contemporaneous. In different family situations, different arguing situations, different discord and strife, and they did not. It's okay. They did not believe me. They did not hear me. They did not, and it just sort of ticks it off. And at the very end, and it's the church of something something, and when it's there, it's in black and white. It's that same issue, because everybody likes to think, and you see this all the time around Christmas time, that people will suddenly pull out their wallets, reach into their pocket, and donate that. And I do not want to dissuade you from doing that. I do not want to dissuade you from doing it. It's one of the reasons why you see all those commercials from Thanksgiving on to Christmas time, because it's one of the biggest seasons for giving in this country, when people start to feel merciful. But I am using that word specifically, merciful, that suddenly people are gracious, suddenly people look past this, suddenly people look past this, and are willing to give people more. And I don't want to sound like I'm holier than thou. Please don't hear that.
I would argue some of that has to do with the memories that are attached to those times, and it's something that's been coming up more with my generation as of late, and for whatever reason this year, especially for like cookout time, where different memes are going around saying, people keep asking, why don't we have cookouts like we used to do back in the day, because so and so died.
Yeah.
The one who used to bring everybody together.
Yeah.
And you do it at Big Mama's house, or you do it at Unc's house, you do it at Grandma's house.
Yeah.
Like whoever's house, you would do it there, and she or they would be the ones to get the food ready and prepared, and call everybody up and do this. And so now it's on my generation, really, to be the ones to cook. Yeah. Those who are in their 30s and 40s, it's on y'all now to do the cooking, to do the cookouts, to be to be that. And so what you end up finding is we weren't preparing for any of that. Yeah. And most of us don't know how to cook. So it's like, and let alone cook for a whole bunch of people. Like, we don't even cook for our own household. That's the
only way of doing it, that you can't reinvent what that looks like. That coming together meal can't be a potluck. It can't be a dish to pass. It can't be a, hey, let's do this.
That's the thing. The majority of folks that be coming together don't know how to cook.
I know.
So, like, in order to do a proper potluck, you got to have everybody bringing the pot that they didn't make.
I do have a good friend who, whenever the Quilt Guild I was a member of, whenever they were having the picnic for the year, or the annual whatever, like this is the Christmas tardy or the holiday tardy, she would go to one of the grocery stores and get one of their prepared things, entrees, take it out of that container,
And
and drink it and say, so because people always want to know what the ingredients are, and so she'd tell them what the ingredients are, and that was what she contributed. And good for her for doing that.
There's nothing wrong with that because it's still being made locally.
Yes.
In someone's kitchen.
Yes.
Like, so because the point still remain, it's fresh cooking.
Yeah.
And or homemade cooking, because I don't want to knock the different restaurants and stuff that be like, because some folks may not have it like that and they prefer to order from a restaurant, and that might be how that restaurant gets their money for that season. So I'm not trying to knock it like that. But it's
whatever you need to do.
And so you don't have people trying to keep traditions going or make their own tradition, and there's a lot of different things that will divide folks, like whether it be people's belief systems, and they may not bang with the holidays, and then you got folks who are just like who do, and they're like, no, you should overlook that, this is the only time we have off. Like, so there's always like these different things that can become divisive, and you don't see compromises happening, whether it be different, you can still have the family reunion when you have the family reunion, but it doesn't mean that that's the only time throughout the year that the people unite. So it's to the point of the nostalgia piece of folks feeling merciful around those different times. A lot of that's built up holiday wise and pay scale wise, and when you can take vacation and time off. And the more that people have not been able to afford that, you've seen less and less and less of that. It don't feel like a Home Alone movie anymore when Christmas come around. It don't feel like a Charlie Brown Carol. Like, you have to come to the small towns and drive by Tom's coffee shop and gifts and smell coffee and stuff like that, just in order to get that fall, autumn, winter vibe. And that's just speaking for here. That's not even speaking for anything else. And that's just me being stupidly nostalgic, because I like that. But,
On another twist on the nostalgia, okay, so I started this conversation by saying ours was an incredibly verbal household, for lack of a...
For real?
That's actually an understatement. And in our household, and part of it is within my job, everything was very straight up, very down to earth, mince no words. It was upfront. So I had a comfort level with that. I never had a problem with that. To speak to some of the stuff we discussed yesterday with my whole cancer stuff, where things were at, and where they were at throughout this journey, never mind with your father. When I say your father, again, to remind people, he had multiple cancers. I always joked on the vegetarian that he was the one who liked to grow things internally. And some of those things were very treatable, not a big deal in cancer terms. Didn't require anything more than, let's just take it out, we're good. So, I mean, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I want to say 5.5, because prostate came in twice, okay, for the kinds of cancers. And on top of that, he had cardiac issues, he had a defibrillator, kidney issues, he was on dialysis. I mean, literally, physically, he was on oxygen. Never mind when your sister was alive, and you were little then. So there's the sense in which there's always significant medical that's in the background that impacts the functioning on a day-to-day level. So, for example, like with your sister, because she was immunocompromised, we literally could not have any kids around the house because that was a possible source of infection. She was basically an infection waiting to happen. They were counting, if you kept her outside of the hospital for any length of time, we would be considered good. So the fact that we were able to do that up until the time of her passing from cancer, there was only 1 or 2 hospitalizations. That's actually amazing. But because of that, it impacted on what we could do with you. So to the point where we actually took a vacation. There were skilled nurses who were in the house, so we could go to Shenango Valley State Park for a weekend as a family, meaning you, me, and your father.
Mm-hmm.
Just so that we could get outside and not just the Sunday afternoon for 5 hours when I would otherwise have a nurse there. Otherwise, we were going to and from work. The nurse was in the house. We had to come and get you, hurry up, do all of that, and heaven forbid there should be anything that changed that. Okay, so I'm saying this by way of preferring. So I don't care where you sort of jumped in on this. For your father, he had significant medical issues probably for the last 15 to 20 years of his life, which also impacted on what we could do, so that we got to, by the last 10 years of his life, we would take family vacations, yay, where we got to do something as a family, apart from living up to everybody else's expectations of what that meant. We'd go to the Adirondacks, and we had a friend who had a cottage or a cabin. We stayed there. We did other stuff that was family friendly. Mm-hmm. Other than that, we were here. It was all about go to and from work, to and from school, to and from this or that, other obligations. So the question is, we always talked openly, freely. We were up front when we knew his last cancer was terminal. We just didn't know it was then. Was the fact that it was so up close and personal, front and center, or at least in the periphery, you could always see it there in the rear view mirror. How did that impact your childhood/adulthood?
Him having his health issues?
Yeah.
You just live with the understanding that at any point he could die. And like in the beginning, it was scary. And at some point, it wasn't anymore. It was just like having Nasima die and then him getting sick. They were reminders of life. Like that at any point this shit can be a wrap. It can be over. And it could be over in different ways, and you just not knowing how it would happen. And then not just with him getting sick, but like when Matt's sister passed away.
Yeah.
When Devin died with her mom.
Yeah.
When Tom got a stroke.
Yeah.
When because these were things back to back that happened while I was in school. And then you're watching how everybody else receives death, and it fragments. There's a time where it brings people together, but it fragments people. It fractures people. It fractures families. It fractures bonds. People get weird when people die. They don't know how to receive you when your relative dies. Like, they treat you like all like this, and you feel like
it's too painful for them to see, it hurts them, or they don't know what to do, or what?
It depends on the person. Like there's for some people that mean well, they cannot know how to provide comfort for you. And some people suck at providing comfort because they ain't never been comforted before.
Okay.
And so they don't know how to give it to you if they ain't never got it before. It's like watching a movie and then you just basically now you're trying to reenact what you saw in the movie, and you don't know if that's going to actually work or not because it's a movie at the end of the day. And so there was that. Then there's just people who who severely underestimate their influence and the power of their influence or their importance within your sphere. Since I didn't really have friends all like that coming up, anybody being nice was golden. Like, it wasn't like I'm waiting for that best friend to, like, after Devin died, like, the concept of a best friend was taken. And so you're looking for people to just be nice ass people. And so I had to get that from the people at the Quilt Guild, from your coworkers, from the brothers and sisters at the mosque. Like, those be, and what that ends up doing is opening the door for that community and tribe that you're looking for, in a way. It doesn't fill the void completely that was there, that got busted open. And then just different world events or just different ways you react with stuff also changes that. Like, so like, you know, Baba getting sick, Pokemon came out. Like, and so every time he'd be in the hospital, I had my Pokemon Red with me. Like, and
it was the one time we probably didn't complain about you playing it.
No, because the thing was like, you know, shout out to Nintendo with Game Boy. Like, because it was a game system in which I could take with me, but when I was acting up, one of y'all was taking it out of my hands, and then it'd be a thing of like, how do I get it back? Right? Like,
yeah, there's that.
And that's way easier to take than unhooking the game system from the room and
yeah,
all
that would never have happened on my end.
Oh, but Baba, he was just like, no, give it up, man. Didn't matter. Or at some point, it was just like, you gonna respect me enough to not even turn that shit on if I say don't turn it on.
That's true.
And so there was like those kind of
That's true.
things, right? But like that happening, and then, you know, the kids at school, especially at West Middle, when Pokemon came out, and we was at the time it hit us like all of us was going through stuff. All of us as kids was going through stuff in middle school, and video games like that, which allowed you to be an explorer and just leave this reality for a second, and have replay value. So it wasn't even a thing of like you just play the game and you're done. This is like, nope, that joint was so dope that like you would play it for a whole year and then you might restart it all over again at the end of the year, especially if what you're going through is going.
Nostalgia factor.
Now I'm talking about like, but back then, it was new, it was fresh,
right.
And it gave y'all something to ask us questions about. So like when he's trying to figure out what the hell is this Pokemon stuff while he's getting his thyroid checked, like, and dealing with CHF.
And it thought of him that I could ask you stuff and you would just tell me.
Yeah, well, I mean, that it's he cared. He struggled with showing how to care.
And do it in a way that's on the kid's level.
No, he knew. I would argue he knew. There were times where I got mad that he would show it to other kids.
Okay.
In a way where it's just like, yo, do that with me. I can't, man. You my son. The hell does that mean? like, no. Like, and over the years, I've had to understand what that is. Especially when you're put in a similar position. And you have, and someone that's like close to you wants you to give them care in a certain way. And then they watching you give it to someone else. And they're like, why don't you do it? Because you've primed this person here to receive care from you specifically in a certain way. And every time it's given, you don't get the mix that you need. But when you give it over here, especially when it's unexpected, it'll mix in a way that it makes it work over there. And those are things that you can't. Bobby used to talk about it. Like, there's certain lessons that you get now, and then there's certain ones that you have to live through them. You have to live life, and then they manifest. And, you know, experience and stuff like that. Because of the different diagnoses diagnoses that he would have,
Mm-hmm.
we became like partners, like partners in crime or partners in truth and justice, however you want to define it. Like wherever he went, I went, and being in the car, and I'm in the passenger, and he's talking, and I'm just listening, and him talking about, and then when I want to talk, because it's too silent, he's just like, no man, what you don't have to talk, right? You can just be quiet. Some folks don't know how to just be chill and be silent, and you listen to each other's silence. And I'm just like, does everything have to be metaphysical? Like, but he was right.
I know.
And because people now, when I do that, they be wanting to turn the radio on or turn something on to fill that space.
People get uncomfortable with silence because they read stuff into it.
All the time. And when
they assume it's a bad thing, as opposed to you actually have some degree of comfort and comfortability with that person enough that you can just be together. And
they waiting for something to happen. What I've had to learn is, we was talking about this the other night, you can feel when there's tension.
Yeah.
You can feel when things are...
You read the room.
Right? Well, even when it's not like the room necessarily, but like, let's say you're in the car or like sitting on the couch and and nothing's being said.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks will their mind get to vibrating, or they energy inside get to vibrating, and it start making things tense for no reason. And that he would, by doing these different exercises that he would have me do, that's why we can just sit in a certain space and you can just feel somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And you just like, yo.
I can usually tell, I mean, even when you're long distance.
Mm-hmm. That's when you really start to test it.
I can tell I need to call you. And we have a routine as to when we call.
Mm-hmm.
That I know, no, I need to call you and I need to call you now. And I'm not talking like it's life or death. I just know I need to call you now.
You can pick up the broadcast signal.
And yeah. I know that when I call you, you'll answer because it's coming from me. So you always, but usually you'll say, "Oh, you heard me, huh?"
Because Mr. Radio Man, being able to cast broadly and broadcast, and therefore channel. And he understood what it was to be a medium, and to channel, and not be a medium in the way that, look to my ball, right? No, but being a master of the waves, and
you can send signals.
Not just send signals, just a master of the waves.
Mm-hmm.
Like you send them, you receive them,
yep.
You peep them,
yep.
You just channel them, and you understand signals in a way that is almost like a lost art.
Mm-hmm.
And
because you're not taught to do that.
In some cases you are. There's something to be said for believing in it, though, because
that's true.
If you don't believe in the stuff, then your signal gonna be shot. It's gonna be weak as hell. And you would put me onto the concept of it in French, it being called pensée, or the pense, and
that's what we call it. Yeah.
But just the word for the verb for to think.
Yep.
And
you think hard enough about something.
And that was the key thing. And then so when we playing backgammon and y'all rolling dice, and they talking to the dice, and she's talking about, oh, he's pouncing right now. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, what?
He's putting the whammy on me. And it's yeah.
And
it's not loaded dice. They are not loaded dice.
Just regular dice.
They are regular dice.
And you just.
But this is like one of the things we did every year when we would go to Shenango Valley State Park. Or when we would go to the Adirondacks, is that there were certain things that we did, and because you would think it was the kiss of death that there's no technical equipment coming in or out of the household, so you have to bring VCR with movies.
Yep.
And hook it up to a TV, which you brought too. Like that was in there before
totally
anything else, and. It was to me, I would have been fine without all of that, but I also knew that was how we would all be able to chill. And then I would bring the games. And it was the one time that we would definitely play them. And we were in our own little world. And the nice thing was, I couldn't get any phone calls. I couldn't get any pages. He couldn't get any phone calls. He couldn't get any, Shake, where are you? I need you right now kind of thing. None of us could be bothered. And the
Just
fact...
before cell phones.
Then the nice thing with that is that we were just us as a unit. And again, not glamorizing anything, because obviously we did go through some extraordinarily tough times. We did. And I know from my own work that those things are the kinds of things that tend to tear a family apart. In our case, it made us stronger. I think there's the phrase like, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's not true. But I think it worked with us. But the whole concept of counseling, that's something that you and I think, still have. I know, even for this time that you've been here. Because we are so straightforward with each other, one of the things I do like is that we can still be blatantly verbal. And so when I've stepped on your toes, figuratively, and either annoyed the crap out of you, offended you, or what have you.
She don't be offending me like that. She just be cutting me off in conversation. Straight up just ask me something. She do
why do you think
stuff.
we're doing this tonight?
She do Baba stuff.
Stop it. Stop it. One of the things I like about us as a family, again, on paper, this should never have worked. It really shouldn't have. Okay, there's the difference with this, first of all. There was the religious difference. Your father was Muslim, I was not. There was an age difference. Then we get married Islamically, and we have a kid who is significantly debilitated. That in and of itself puts stress on a relationship, and then she dies. That in and of itself puts stress on the relationship. Many marriages break up over that. So we're sort of like going through all these potholes, and like if it were a video game, I can't even imagine what that would be looking like. What that would look like. And then raising you, not to say you were a source of strife.
It wasn't easy though.
No, you weren't. But I also understood. See, I think I understood that better than him. I think he was, to his credit.
You had more patience. He understood it. You had more
No,
patience.
No, he did understand it. You're right. I think he thought that he could, just by virtue of sharing the wisdom of his ways with you, that he could prevent you from making certain mistakes. And it's like, I would say to him, like behind closed doors, hello, have you met your son? He is you. Knock it off.
Well, that was that what you just said there. That was the thing. I ain't heard all my life how.
I'm gonna ignore that. It'll take up.
I'm just waiting for it to. For me, I had heard. I'd heard that all my life, that how much I'm like him, or him even telling me, "Yo, you just like me, man," and
I'm sorry.
And there's a good side to that. It's more so when you don't allow me to be that though.
Okay.
Where it's like, okay, well, how am I? Oh, so you jumped out of your second floor house because you thought you could be Mary Poppins too with the umbrella, eh? Right? So if I did something similar, it was like, okay, so you ain't had nobody to yell at you. is what you're telling me. So now you want to yell at me for everything that I'm doing, but then yelling to a point that you put someone in a state of fear of doing things around you. And so I end up hiding things from him. But then I'll come to you and be like, hey, man, look what I got. And him wanting some of them moments.
Yeah.
Where it's like, why don't you ever show me? Da, 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 da. Well, you will stomp on a man's dreams. Like, and be like, no, it can't work this way because you're a scientist. Must be nice. Right? Like, I'm learning science. I ain't there yet.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't learn it. You learn stuff at the age of freaking 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You're doing like fucking advanced physics and shit before you're 20. Like, not to say that I didn't like science and stuff like that, but it's just like there was a necessity of you having to learn it that
And
I did not have to.
him, not me.
Yeah.
And his father, not
like,
me.
Of him having to learn it and the time that he had to learn it as a black man, as a chocolate black man, of him learning it when he wasn't supposed to learn it or not, wasn't.
Or supposedly not capable of understanding.
A whole bunch added to it where there's a deeper incentive versus your privileged ass son can learn it or choose not to learn it at his will. And it was a thing of I just wanted to be me and figure out what that was, not be told that I am like someone else and should learn how to be my own version of that. That to me was not being me. That was being a clone of someone else. And we know that to be true because of the majority of brothers that still look at me as Mini Bob or Mini Tariq to this day.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't see me as Idasa. They see me as the progeny of the two of y'all. They don't call me Mini Diane. They call me Mini Tariq. And so like I look at those things, and it's I learned to appreciate what that really means. Because it's not like being y'all mini-me is a bad thing. What I'm getting at is look at people. Back to the question that you had asked before about what can we do better. Look at people for who they are.
Uh-huh.
And
on their own terms.
On their own terms. And if they've done a good job of putting in the work of being who they are. It's one thing if you being like, I think where it gets tricky is when you label yourself a label that others can share or already do share. And so now you're arguing about, well, I'm not a working person like you, right? And that can lead to discussion. It can also lead to arguments, right? And I'm saying in the sense of the criteria for the label, right? And you know how much I love labels. You know how much I hate mislabels, right? And I love labels because for a kid that grew up in the library, labels are titles. You got categories for the books. And then you go and you might find 3 books with the same title, but they're not about the same stuff. And so now you get an interpretation of what this person means when they say the title versus this person, but it's all in the same section. Or it may not even be in the same section, right? And so I like labels. But just like with him, I would always argue about, sometimes because just to challenge him, in the same way that he was challenging me. Mm-hmm. It was, at some point, it was like, I want the right to be able to challenge you. I don't like this whole thing of I can't challenge you because of age, because of all these other things that you said folks challenged you for, but you knew the information. And not you knew the information like you just been studying it for a month. You knew the information because you've been studying it for years.
And to be fair, as a household, it was a verbal household. So the expectation would be, if you had thoughts or feelings about something, why can't you tell us what that is? Mm-hmm. Really? And I guess my hope is, and again, it's too late, for at least one of the 2 of us, of the 3 of us, to change things, because that which is we can't change what happened before. We can only move forward. With that being said, I guess my hope is that there was enough of a respect or appreciation or validation of talents and skills that on some level, even if it wasn't rubber stamped the way it could have been.
It eventually, I mean, the weekend of him passing, he gave the stamp. It's just the time period he come from and who he was. It's never going to be the stamp. I think even regardless of that, it's never going to be the stamp or being stamped in the way that you want. And even if you got it in the way that you want, it don't mean shit. Like, and the reason I say that is when I look at, I wanted to be the MC that's ill at rapping, and on some, if Kanye and Mos Def and Royce 5'9" were and Black Thought were put together in one human body and sprinkle a little Lupe on there, like, that's me. In one way of saying it, that's me, who can write hooks like Will Smith. And it like, in being that, because it was like, yo, I want to give this message that you've given to me. I want to give this spiritual divine message that you've given to me without remixing the Quran. It don't need to be remixed. Mm-hmm. It's fine the way it is. We still give this thing called dawah, as you say, sir, in which we're disseminating the message, but your way of giving it might only be good for 75% of the populace. And there's this 25% that no matter how dope you are at your dawah, they're not going to get it because of the tone and the timbre and all this of how you might say it. And then there's this other growing populace of folks that's my age, where we're all like, we're tired of the doom and gloom time we walk in the door and feeling like we got to pay for the mistakes of those who came before us. And none of y'all made them pay for the mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so, and that being a whole discussion that never would get talked about. What ended up happening was I created Pissed Off SoulMan in 2011. Because I remember saying I need to have... It's weird now because, like, when Gary's talking about developing a mascot, to me that was my mascot. Like, the alternative version of who I am. Mm-hmm. Him being the jazz man at the flea market. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be the soul man. But I'm pissed off. So I'm the pissed off soul man. And
as if he wasn't.
Yeah, really. And in the weekend of him passing, because all superheroes got an origin story. And so him and I butting heads all the time. He was the first villain, but he wasn't like no villain. There were other villains that came later on. And he became basically
and practice. To the extent that we were a tight family, to some extent, there were fractures in there. Mm-hmm. That whole origin story, and you kind of can't totally be voted off the island kind of thing.
But with something about dads is they become the first villain that you have.
Yeah. And
they prepare you for the world, for the other villains that you'll deal with. Mm-hmm. And so, like, and then for me, this was truly like Obi-Wan versus Anakin. And instead of being Darth Vader, I turned Revan. And I just didn't come back and do what Revan did with the Jedi Council. That was my only...
I don't understand what Revan did with the Jedi Council, but you can describe that to me later.
In short, it's when you raised... If being raised a Jedi is the equivalent to being raised a Mujaddid, mm-hmm. a Muslim renewer, right? You're raised in the Jedi ways. You see something happening over here. You're telling the Jedi Council, yo, we need to step in and handle this. These people over here are being accosted, and they need our help. And the Jedis, the Mujaddids, are saying, no, we don't do that. We don't step in like that. We didn't. It's just like, hold up. We're supposed to be the defenders of the galaxy and the balanced people of the Force and blah, 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 blah. And so you be like, yo, forget them. And you get a cohort of y'all, and you go over there and you make war with the folks that's doing the accosting, the oppressors. And then that war eats all of y'all, because that's what they saw. That if you get into war with these folks over here, it ain't going to be like no war you've ever fought before. It's going to be a war that robs every last one of y'all of your spirit and your connection to the force. And so that happens. But we find some of us get lost in that. And basically you become the bad side of Revan. And then you come back and you initiate vengeance, revenge.
And it just continues and continues and continues.
And you create what's called the Jedi Civil War. So that was my thing, was I don't want to come back. And because my beef was like the older heads being mad at my generation for things that we did not create. The things we created, be mad at us for.
Mm-hmm.
The things we didn't create, that y'all created, that you didn't handle, and you just let be and let fester, and then it get to a point where it's not just affecting you now, it's affecting us. And then when we ask you what's the origin of this, you don't tell us what the origin is. And then we gotta figure it out. And then some of us don't like what we figured out. And then so you coming back and you like, well, hold up, man. And then you can't talk back too loud and too big, because dad is still dad. And the men are still men. You take a certain tone, the man's gonna growl like a lion. And then now you got two lions. And it's Lion Kings with Jedis. So you asked, how was it? It was order and chaos. And he had said, be what you want to be, man. Don't matter what I said. Don't mind what I said. Do what makes you happy. And that took all the air out.
Were you doing this? Who are you? And what have you done to my daughter?
Because it was like, yo, man, I just had an official 7-year run as pissed off SoulMan. And you just
deflated the balloon.
It's not like you gotta go out and look for a new supervillain. It's like no, literally you just, supervillains will come to you. You ain't gotta worry about that.
I want to ask you something that ties in with what we discussed yesterday.
Okay.
Specific to knee. And knee getting sick. And I'm going to preface it. Yesterday I talked about the fact that for the first year I was sick. I mean, I woke up, I was pissed, I was going to fight. Obviously, this is the thing where, no, we're fighting. Thank you. There's a common theme here within our family.
Mm-hmm.
And we're good with that. We feel very comfortable in that lane. But for that first year, when Tito were sort of like treating me with kid gloves, because you were looking at me as dead man walking.
Mm-hmm.
And assuming that your days are numbered, I'm not going to give you a heart. The stuff that people would usually do with me. Do you feel your communication with me changed? Either in the beginning or even over time?
Both, for sure. Like,
how and in what ways?
We didn't have the closeness and frankness that we have now. We've always had a closeness, and there's always been a aspect of transparency that we've shared. But as you would say, forgive us, lying by omittance. That's how I'll say it. Lying by omittance, right? And we would omit things out of care for each other, but it still wasn't being. It was doing more damage sometimes.
Full disclosure doesn't always mean full disclosure.
Yeah,
the way of saying it.
Like, just finding out things because of a Freudian slip. Like, he's like, oh yeah, and your father had hepatitis. It's like, wait, what? Well, we didn't want to worry you. It's like, oh, you thought by leaving hepatitis B out of the laundry list of things, like this cancer, congestive heart failure. But, oh, sure, let's just leave hepatitis out because that's going to make a difference, right? As if the others wouldn't have me worried is what I'm saying, right? But y'all explaining, like, look, we didn't want to worry you, right? And so we had to move past that. then it was when we were in the hotel at Albany Medical, and Bob was like, "She's gonna need you, man." And he ain't like really preface it with anything. So mind you, this is
He knew he was dying, and he didn't say it.
He didn't say
like
that
to either one of us.
And it was the top of the year. She wanted, because this is like New Year's Eve time now of 2017.
And he passed away in August.
Right, so they're talking like 8 months before he left.
And to be fair, that last cancer diagnosis he had, we knew was going to be terminal. We knew there would be a point at which they would not be able to do the kinds of interventions they were already doing for it. I think he knew his body well enough to know, no, yeah, I'm getting there.
And he didn't say anything about any of that. And he just said, "Your mom's gonna need you, man." And it was like, I know. And that's usually what I would say when he'd say some shit like that. Right? Like, you know you need to ... I know. Right?
The ways in which you torture your son.
And I'd say it like that, and it would make him chuckle or laugh a lot of the times, because he just saw that I had energy back behind it, where there was a willingness that's there. And that was cool for him, and that's how he would know that, like, okay, Das is feeling it, right? Meaning feeling it is in I'll do it. So I'm not feeling it, I ain't doing it. And
there was no passivity there.
Yeah, it was just like, because it was just like, it's Mom. Why wouldn't I? Like, and you think no brainer, duh. But then you look at the world and families, and then you're just like, oh, okay, got it, check. Because our families, we always hit the Olympics in that one. Taking the gold this time, aren't we? Like, and...
Okay, then.
It's,
no, that's fine.
Like, so...
These kind of issues can bring out the best and the worst in folks. They can. Death, dying, significant, severe, or protracted...
yeah, and when it comes to
chronic stuff, all of that.
On some Bible stuff, when it comes to them, any of them, I'm not worried about losing something I never had or gained before.
Like, you can't miss something you didn't have.
And just because they said I have it, it's just like, I can give you the receipts of how it ain't been here. How about that? And you go back to that whole thing of labels and interpretation and subjectivity and all that crap. But to bring it back, when it comes to, like, this frankness wasn't there 15 years ago. Like, because there was still a worry of wanting to make sure I'm not disrespecting and this and that, and disrespecting you. Especially if it was on your side of the family, or even with him, if it was on the other side of the family. And just knowing your place as the new baby of the family. Great. Right? And things definitely changed when we went to Baltimore, and the first time, and we see the X-ray of this sucker we're looking at, the tumor,
alien,
the broccoli, the broccoli cancer, right? Because basically it got a stalk and it got a plume. And the fact that
you remember that, and when you say it now, yeah, I do remember him saying this, but I'm like, okay,
because they were just like, it wasn't just so much like the whole dead man walking thing. Like, I'm used to people who've dealt with death in mad different ways. And so when they talk to you about it, they're a bit optimistic. And they're a bit lighthearted and still, like, in the reality of, like, death is death. Death is final. Like, but look on the bright side, right? Type of thing.
There's the good news and the bad news.
Yeah, and the fact that like no one there was like giving that vibe, and then it's just like, well, this is what we have here, and I get it. It's cancer that kill you, like they kill you. But for me,
like put your things in order, like now.
But for me, I'm just like, do you know what family we come from? Like, my dad was given like mad shit, and he still lived.
Yeah.
Like they were told you got this cancer, and he was just like, okay, you got this one, okay, got another one, okay, you got two at the same time. Oh, really?
One could never have too many types of cancer.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you?
Sprinkle some diabetes on it, a little CHF a couple times. Like, and it was just like, okay. And, like, getting a diagnosis shouldn't mean the world's ending type thing. So then different things like him saying...
Because the world does still go on for everybody around you.
But even for... It's like, yo, you were in the business of not just saving lives and being the undertaker before you send them to the undertaker in some respects. You're in the business of hope. That's what you get paid for. That's why you get paid a shit ton of money. You're in the business of hope. And all these machines and doodads and stuff like that. I did not watch Doogie Howser all my life as a kid and be given hope and Rescue 911 and all this other stuff just for you to give some snide remark and be like, And so the second time when we went, and that was a little bit more fruitful, where I think she was the one, it was a woman too. And that might have been a problem. We should have just seen women the whole time and leave the one guy alone. Like, because he wasn't helping at all, the first dude. And we're both being like extra super serious, like soldiers at war who've been told that the Wessel Tarik home front has been shot up. He's like, and here's what we're dealing with. And so again, I'm expecting failure was not an option. And if we was gonna lose, then we gonna lose with some style and some grace. Which means don't say that we're going to lose. It is all about how we're going to win this fight. And figuring out what different chemo regimens to do. Like, and just having to be present. And being there. So when they talked about like, all right, this is what we can deal with. The stock of this thing, we can't cut because it's on the veins and whatnot. But the plume, we can kill the plume. I said, okay, cool. This sounds like a big ass weed tree. Not the one you smoke, but like when weeds are in the garden, they taking over stuff. Like if weed could be a big ass tree.
I'm still trying to figure out when this conversation was, because I don't remember that whole time.
It was the second time we went to Baltimore. We was at Johns Hopkins.
That might be why. Because that was the neuro.
We went there. We went there twice at that point.
Yeah. The first time was cardiac and kidney. The second time was neuro.
And it was just like people were just dealing with you in a way where, and it wasn't necessarily phasing you. And if it was, you weren't showing it. You were just like, no, we're going to do this. I got to hit it. As you said the other day, you got to hit it hard, hit it hard, hit it hard.
Yep.
And so.
Watch me.
It was, yeah. And so I'm like, I need y'all to have that kind of vibe. Like, y'all are...
For real, because, I mean, come on, let's look at this. Your father, with what he had to deal with.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, you're throwing all this stuff at him, and he still like, there's no way I'm going to go for less than 150%. There's just no way.
That's where you start to realize how people look at you when you are kind and easygoing. They look at you as easy and not strong. And it was just like, I'm trying to be mindful of my words. It was like, yeah, no, heck no, we're not going for that. And so,
if you remember, I was taught how to tackle. I was taught, don't pay attention to that part of the body. Pay attention to the waist. They can always cut. They can always cut this way, da da da. And the other thing I was taught was not a saying a poker face, but when you're reading it, you don't let them know you're reading it, because then they anticipate.
It's like the little girl we were just watching in Ghostbusters, when he was asking, when they first saw the ghost, and he's asking her, "You're not scared?" She's like, "Overstimulation makes me calm."
Because you do. You have to. You get clinical. You get analytical, and I'm not saying that I was arrogant and didn't think death was on the table. Yeah, it certainly was.
You do it like a soldier does. Like, you don't have time. In Goju, what they taught us, he who hesitates is dead. So,
Thank you.
So the minute you go to thinking about life and death, it's probably when you die. Like, and you at that point, you just gotta instinctually just go.
Because that's the other side of the conversation in terms of this and the whole point of this. I said before, when I first woke up and realized, oh, are you kidding me? Really? This is what I'm dealing with? And I know what that means. Yeah, I don't need to do Google. I told you. I already know what this means. I know it's a catastrophic diagnosis. I know it's terminal. There is a reason the federal government, if you have a certain amount of employment history, this is actually a diagnosis. You can look it up under the Compassionate listing under Social Security disability benefits. If you have certain diagnoses, I call it the sucky diagnosis list. If you happen to have these sucky diagnoses, and pancreatic adenocarcinoma is one of them, then when you do the application, they just need your doctor to validate that. There's certain other criteria they got to meet, but it fast tracks you for disability status. As long as you have met the quotas for working, and I have, because I was working since I was a gazillion years old. The reason I'm saying all that is that I know what it means. It's in my family tree. If the feds say, "Oh my God, just give it to her, just give it to her, just give it to her," because by the time you are eligible for it, otherwise you're dead. When Joanne applied for Social Security disability with her colon cancer at stage 4, she had she was on the sucky diagnosis list, and so she was getting it before she died. She was dead within 6 months of the diagnosis. So I know what I'm dealing with. So yeah, this isn't like false bravado. It's just like we talked about it. I knew it was on the table once we as a family talked about it, and I knew how serious it was. And no, I had stuff I needed to do. I had a sickly husband, and I'll be damned if I was gonna not be here. Somebody's got to look out for that man. As he would say, he needed his secretary and the general to keep his life in order. We always acted as a family. For you, did faith come into it at all as part of this?
Yeah. May Allah forgive me, but yeah.
That's honest.
Because to me at that point, faith and belief weren't occupying the same room or household for me. And not like in the household like for us, but just in the temple of your body type of deal. Like
in your own space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it was just, to have faith in something to me just wasn't synonymous with do you believe in a thing. And Iman, faith, belief, I would get too sciencey with it, where I was just looking for belief as a unit of measure for faith. How much do you believe something, and then that means you do have faith in it or you don't. And it's just like you're talking synonymously and driving yourself crazy. And there wasn't it wasn't until this year really that I could say that I truly started to believe in the religion that I was given, that I walked away from, that I walked back to, that I jived for years. Like, it was something I remember when I asked Baba years ago, where I was like, well, so what made you like start practicing, man? I didn't want to keep bullshitting. That was what he had said. And because you'll go through, like, in the moments where you silent with yourself, where you're like, I'm gonna stop bullshitting one day. I'm gonna get it together. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And it becomes like this commercial going on in your head. And I'd say the seeds of it would be when I had to start teaching you, when you converted in 2021.
And were you on the other side of the phone going, yes, 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 yes?
No, like, I mean, internally, sure. But it was more like, alhamdulillah. Damn it, Baba was right. like, damn it, like, how do you keep doing this shit after you die, man? Like, this is wild. And him being right on things like that. And then you're just looking at it where it's just like, okay. Us being card players in the family, it's like, this is the cards that we've been given. And seeing which ones you're going to put back, which you're going and draw from the deck. And it's like an infinite amount of hands until it isn't. It's just kind of like what it is. And yeah, it wasn't until, like how you talked about hearing the voice, and then this year being the year that I finally see the movie Dune, the original. And
we do have to watch that if we can.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like, cause how they talk about the voice, probably one of the best ways I've seen, aside from Star Wars, and maybe The Matrix, like how they really get into talking about the voice.
Should I talk about the voice so they understand what the voice reference is?
No, they're fine. They're
okay.
fine.
Okay.
Sorry, it's an inside joke that I kind of only brought you to the screen door of. But at least you heard some stuff, right? Some folks don't even make it up the porch. But you know, check Dune and peep the voice, or peep the second episode with Paradise, and we talked about it in there. Like, it's just the power of the voice and what you can do with it.
Let's put it this way. Whenever, hopefully,
when you hear it, really.
It doesn't require a major life event.
I mean, you
but there are times that there are times that you kind of hope that, if at no other time, if you haven't thought about it beforehand, if you have a major life event, somebody's dying, somebody's getting a degenerative disease, somebody's significant life event that fundamentally changes how you see the world. How do you make sense of that? What sense do you make of that? What is your belief system? What is your worldview? If at no other time than those, hopefully you thought about it beforehand, but if you haven't.
Thinking about it's cool, but emotion gets you in motion. Like, without that emotion, there's no incentive for you to move.
Understood.
Like,
I guess I'm assuming if you think about it, okay.
You can think about God and faith all day long, but if you don't feel God and feel faith, you are not moving towards God and in faith.
That I would argue that sometimes people need to go to the room of whatever that God is for you, and just be present Because sometimes you can feel something there.
It's still emotion.
That as a connection and a connectedness, that even if you don't feel it totally here in your heart, you might kind of feel it up here. Mm-hmm. And at some point you're kind of hoping that it's going to sort of like infuse who you are.
It's being told what God is and what religion is and what faith is and what hope is and all these different things. And then you actually have to feel and experience it.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, because otherwise you're just being... That was always my biggest thing when it came to religion. When I listened to music, and the music I was listening to, and I could feel the soul and spirit in it.
Yeah.
And I'm
There's a connection.
I'm like, that was why.
Yeah.
When you're listening to sermons and lectures from folks who are broken.
Yeah.
Or from folks who break others.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And you're struggling to find this spirit and this soul, like you got from these beats over here, like you got from these poets, from these MCs and these rappers.
Right.
And you're not hearing it.
You can feel the authenticity over here, and you don't feel it over here. There's a disconnect.
And the authenticity of them not being afraid to tell you how they are heathen, how they mess up, how they sin, how they have to repent for it, the repentance part of it all, like. Because we're just surrounded by too many folks who feel like they don't have to repent. Like when someone says, I forgive myself. I get it, but I hate that phrase. I really hate that phrase. Make peace with yourself for what's happened? Sure. But forgive yourself. Who the hell are you to forgive yourself? Like, no. Ask whatever you believe in for forgiveness, and then go on that journey with it. But to just be like, and that's what a lot of us would be looking for, is how do you make peace with your mistakes, y'all? And the real mistakes, not no, I forgot to tie my shoe today, type shit. And having that discernment of knowing, because in Islam we got minor sins and we got major sins, right? You still ask for forgiveness. But there's ones where you really be like, oh snap, I need to... Allah, I know you saw that. Like... So like, moving... When you having a... Abba had said this on Abba and Preach. With... I never knew this, but when he talked about having a collapsed lung. And he said, you know what having a collapsed lung is like? He's like, what? It's like you go to breathe, and every time you go to breathe, someone chop you at your neck.
Yep.
And each breath is like that. So I know when I was having a hard time breathing this year in the ER, but I wasn't having a hard time like that. But I can understand what he was talking about.
Yeah.
About when you
struggling to breathe is one of the hardest things. Be it from that collapsed lung, congestive heart failure, difficulty,
COPD,
COPD, anemia that's significant, any of that. Yeah, all of that. You don't want to drowning, near drowning, choking, all of that.
Just how this whole year was going, in terms of lack of hope, lack of faith, lack of a lot of things, and going down that It's a Wonderful Life path, and I said it, and it's a dope movie. I said it in Radioactive Mind. God sent me an odd body, had to even out after nights of the blue devil to get in your bones. I've been going off feeling like I'm my pop shotty. With heaven open if I ask, beam me up, Scotty. That's a joke. I'm just being Monty. The other fishers call me Antoine Bobby. But like, God sent me an odd body. And for those who don't know the reference, this when Allah sends you, like, just call it an angel or whatever. Odd body, and you don't see it. You see it, but you just the ways that it shows up. Whenever we see spiders, those be one of the other odd bodies that show up to give a message. Because I'll see signs all the time. I'll get dreams, and then got to go on the whole dream interpretation route and figuring out what did this mean, and what did, the symbolism of this and all that. and then you start to. That's really gonna test your belief and your faith. You asking like, so is it real? Like, I know this says this, I know this says that,
Mm-hmm.
and this wise person over here said this, and this wise person over here said that. But is it? And it's like what Abu Tariq has said about that agnostic, atheist philosopher dude, who has said when it came to believing something like you don't lose anything by believing in the hereafter
Mm-hmm.
or having faith in it. Like, but you do lose something if you didn't believe in it.
It is true.
Like, you have nothing to lose if you believe in a hereafter,
Mm-hmm.
an afterlife, right? Because you can get there and your description is wrong. Okay, cool. At least you believed in it, and now you've shown it. Versus if you be like, no, ain't nothing after this, after that, and then you get there and there's a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, you gonna feel type of ways.
I'm going to wind us down, but before I do that,
Mm-hmm.
I do want to ask one last question. So it gives you the opportunity yet again to you speak yourself
Okay.
without me cutting you off or any of that stuff. Have there been moments during this visit that you, or in most recent months? No, actually, it's twofold. Okay, the first part is, how do you make sense of the fact that I'm still here this far out? How do you make sense of the fact that I've been on break for as long as I've been? Especially given that you went to Johns Hopkins with me both times. And then the final thing is, being here, seeing me here in this space, in this moment in time, are there things that you struggle with seeing in me? Okay, hit it. Whatever you want to respond to, go for it.
The only way I can explain why you're still here, Allah. In the same way when folks asked why are we still here when the pandemic happened, Allah. That was the only vaccine I trusted. That was the only thing that I would take internally and put within inspire, that I believe kept us here. So no matter what magic medicine everybody want to make up today, whether it work or it don't work, it don't matter. There's always that chance of it may not work. No matter if it's got 100% success rate. It's, I would say Allah. And Him providing you with a means of self-determination, knowledge of self, to quote the Black Star song, knowledge of self-determination, knowledge of self-determination. And I'm butchering it right now because I'm just butchering it. So my apologies, Black Star. That will, that gives one willpower. And that's the thing that we were given as human beings. It's one of the things that makes us and jinns separate from every other creation, is free will. And how you channel it, how you power it up, how you use it. Optimism and hope being components of that willpower. Otherwise, like, what's the point of having it? In some respects, it's going to be dead energy. I think was hard to see is different from Baba is knowing that the twilight is upon us.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, man, when you was around him, it was just like he just had a good way of keeping them window blinds closed, so you never knew it was twilight outside.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can see it on the horizon with me.
You just don't know how far off it is.
Mm-hmm. I agree. You're right.
There are times where I had the same feeling about myself.
I know.
And I know that others will see that or feel that. And there's reason, like good reason to.
That's why I have to interject on that. That's why I actually respect that you did go get checked. That's why when you still didn't feel right and you went checked again and you knew and they did further diagnostics and okay, we got to deal with this then. Okay, fine. And then there was an additional follow-up. And then there's follow-up up here because all of it intertwines. It's sort of like if you think of a plant that has roots and the roots can just go long and deep. The roots can, it's the head of broccoli again. The roots can just go straight down, but usually 9 times out of 10, the roots tend to get enmeshed in other things, and one thing over here impacts something over here. So what I give you credit for is the way in which you took ownership, and you didn't let it just go.
I was just shown different things, different possibilities of what could happen. Shit ton of truth commercials. A crazy ton of truth commercials that just pop up randomly. Or not randomly, depending on how you look at it. And stuff like when it comes to your speech and talking. And so it's like I do a lot. I get paid for my mouth. Pause. But like, I get paid more for that now than I do with working with my hands. And looking at how the chemo has affected, and
the hits,
being like you're not alone here in Bing, but you are alone to a degree in terms of the house, and so like fears that I've had for myself, where it's just like having a hard time breathing and. How many phone calls will someone have to do before they come to your door to check on you, type of thing, that you don't pick up. And, just thinking along those lines. And just not knowing, do people even think on those lines anymore, and feel like people don't. And they're just so, you can't even say that they're just so caught up in their other things. It's like people just don't care like that. But the people that are around you, that you choose for you to surround, they do care.
Yeah, they do.
And
yeah, they do.
So that's where I'll have like a peace of mind in that regard. The only things that that worry me is I'd want you to have the comfort of at least what we were able to provide Baba, having family around him. In the same way, Ani Joe. And I pray for that, where it's like I would want to be here, and make sure that that's a peaceful and easy transition. Probably be reciting the 3 Kulsars over and over and over again.
Can you do the one that includes Mekadir?
Yes.
Okay.
Tekathur, yeah.
Can you do that one? Yeah, do the ones you know. I like. The Qadir. Yep. I love that one. Yeah. Sorry.
When I was memorizing
Juice
Amma coming up as a kid, she'd be in the other room, and when it got to those certain parts, so long as it wasn't prayer, she'd be reciting it back. We used to drive my dad crazy because it's.
But you would respond to it. and it would turn
It was
into,
incentive.
Yeah.
In a way. It was incentive.
You were teaching me, and in teaching me, I would try to recite it back, failing miserably.
We'd laugh at that. Like,
failing miserably.
and he'd be mad because he's just like, stop it, it's the Quran. You're supposed to
and I
take it
wasn't trying to
seriously.
be disrespectful, but how do you say the Quran with a Massachusetts accent?
There's no excuse. There's no excuse because you can do French.
When I was trying to learn French, I was taking French in college up in Vermont, and over the border is Montreal. CGFN, Montreal. I say it. That I say that, they say with a Germanic accent, because it's still with a Massachusetts accent.
It's still in Europe. Oh, you're acting like so with every other language, you just refuse to leave the East Coast.
Excuse me, I have lived in this state how long? How long?
That's beside the point.
I have lived in this state how long? Answer the question.
For more than 30 years.
Yeah, since I was 22. Park the car in the Harvard Yard. In the hospital, I would say, where's the chart? The entire floor would say, chart! They'd stop what they were doing. I have a dear friend whose name is Karen. I say Karen, and then they all say, Karen! Say her name again, say her name again. It's like they're a bunch of school kids. And it's like, they didn't do that for the first year, then I get sick. And I'm like, could you do that again? Come on.
They did it with me, and they didn't even hear me say it. They saw, I wrote a damn note at the dentist. The dentist, shout out to them. And just, it's like, to his ma. To his ma. You just hear them back there.
Okay, so for the record, when I was first hearing him recite Quran, and he had to recite the surahs of the prayers back to me, and that was sort of the checks and balances, because he'd be sent into his room, and he couldn't play any video games until he had recited the surahs. And now, mind you, he can tell you, line by line, all the lines for movies. So his father was not dying it that he couldn't remember the surahs. He just wasn't, that he had to keep on going back there. This
is how I became the best Pokemon master in Binghamton, because I needed to catch them all. And I'll be damned. And so I was able to memorize, and I was able to collect all 151.
So he would finally memorize whatever he had to memorize, come out and report to me, and I would listen to his prayer, and I'd stop what I was doing. Usually I would be at the sewing machine.
I had gym leaders to fight.
And he was there, and he would recite it back to me, and I would make sure that it sounded okay to me, and we would turn it, okay.
But then he caught on. Because he's like, hold it, what? Your mom don't read it, speak at it. Come here. Recite it back. That don't even sound right.
So
no,
you're
no,
saying
no,
the
no.
ones, and it's like there was one that was like, one of the lines is Nakadir. The way you say it.
And then
when you recite Quran, one of the things that's pretty, it's probably not, this is wrong, I shouldn't say it this way. It's a recitation of a surah, of a prayer. And there's a cadence to it. There's not just the saying, it's not dry.
You're being a qari, like you are recitation.
You are, and it's part of it is you're in that moment, you're in that zone saying it, because you're giving prayer. And the prayer at that moment is heartfelt. So he'd be saying the prayer to me, as if I'm capable of validating what he's doing. And there's certain prayers that he had to do them lots and lots and lots, so I got used to them. And I couldn't ever say them from the jump without you starting it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me now, because I've had...
Al-Qadiya.
Yeah. So anyway...
See how she's bopping like it's a beat?
Because that's how I would do it. Because, okay, and you need to understand that with the neuro hit I took, again, these are toxic medicines. They don't just go after they're equal opportunity. So there's going to be collateral damage. And again, I am not complaining. They did what they were supposed to. You're not supposed to be on the meds for this length of time. People don't live for this length of time. So I'm not going to fault meds for this. They did dose reduce it because of the heart. They did dose reduce it because of the kidneys. And then the neuro thing happened. And good for me. If you're going to do a side effect, do a weird, exotic, strange side effect. And yeah, bottom line, when this happened, it's not just neuro in terms of impacting the mouth, which is significant. You can see when I take a drink of water, especially now it's later in the day. One of my friends, Nago, bought me this little bottle. Nago.
Sorry.
Shut up. Bought me this bottle so that I could squeeze it. It would go to one side of my mouth so I'd be less likely to choke because there was an actual narrowing of the blood flow to certain veins and blood vessels in the brain. Who knew they could see that on? It's fascinating, the stuff that they did. Anyway.
Geez,
So
dentist X-rays. I'm just like, oh my god.
yeah. So like they did this workup on me. No, I did not have a stroke. It affected the brain and it affected specific muscle groups. So I went to speech therapy, okay? And before you go there, I was told by the very lovely, dear speech therapist that no, they were not going to mess with the accent because everybody in this state wanted to know. They're going to work on your accent, right? Because they considered it a handicapping condition.
Shots fired.
And she said, no, that's just that's a how to speech from where you grow up type of deal. So it's not considered a deficit when you have a Massachusetts accent. So if you can't say ah in Massachusetts, it's okay. If you can't say ah and you're from California, they do send you to speech therapy.
That's what she's saying.
Shut up. Anyway, so I'm saying all that because part of the difficulty for me doing the studies has been in this whole thing for me, even with the chemo, even with the cancer, I have to have fail-safes. I have to put some type of things in place to maximize the likelihood of compliance because I'm juggling neuro, GI, thyroid, cardiac, kidney, gut, and then urological stuff. So all of those things and how they intertwine. There is no way I'd be able to do that had I not gone through what I went through with your sister and with your father. So I went to college on their stuff. I learned, whatever I learned. This is grad school. We're now in grad school doing this. And that's a long-winded answer. I'm trying to learn Quran. And I can remember stuff from remembering you do it. You have this wonderful site that he's designed for me, intromuslim.com. And he's incredibly patient and incredibly thorough and incredibly kind. And he breaks it down, and you can go back and forward. And I, who am computer illiterate, have learned how to do the pause button, like where was that. I learned how to expand and decrease the screen and all that other stuff. And I have to, again, give myself fail-safes so that I have alternatives and options to make sure that I can do what I'm supposed to do. When I asked you the question is, there are certain things that are harder for you to see with me. The nice thing about this visit is that I am not on chemo right now. There is like a fog. Chemo brain is real. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize that at the time that you're going through it. Again, not complaining. I am still here. And chemo does what it's supposed to do. You don't come at this with a DD gun. You got to come at it with a bazooka, in which case there's going to be collateral damage. I was willing to accept the damage because I needed the end game, which was give me life, give me the most high quality life that I can have, and if I'm going to take hits, I'll deal with it. So that's the whole conversation from yesterday with the night from the Monty Python, where okay, my arm was lopped off, the other arm was lopped off. Now my legs, not dissing anybody who has significant impairment. Believe me, lived that. We've lived that. and you do what you got to do. One of the reasons why I am looking forward to seeing the Olympics is that is totally about hope. That is about living and surpassing people's expectations. When you see that, that's a beautiful thing to see, and people want to see that. I know I am a community project. I know once they got past the dead man walking, that it was like, oh my word, she's still here. And it's like, to be a part of that, to know that part of why I am here is because you are helping me, and you've been able to do this, because I don't have the ability to look this stuff up. She's a nurse, and she can anticipate stuff. I have these friends that are in medical, or I have these friends who have other talents. I have friends that are quilters. I can't go to a quilt shop like that, well, especially when, with social isolation, and I'm not going to go online. I'm going to support the brick and mortar quilt shop that I've always supported, because that's what I want to do. Other people can do it online, and power to you if you do. But I'm not doing that, because I know these people. That's their livelihood, and they're dear friends. And more than that, when you say to somebody else, hey, this is your budget, and I need you to go buy this kind of fabric for me or whatever, and you get to go wild with that budget, it ain't your money, it's for me, and this is what I'm going to use it for. When we had the pandemic, there were people who found out that we were making masks. The quilt shop got the 1/4-inch elastic, which you could not find anywhere to save your life.
Close to 2,000 masks.
Yeah, 1,600 plus.
With no feeling in her feet.
In the Indians. My friend was the one who would cut it out because he couldn't sew it on a machine because of his own neuropathy. The quilt shop was either giving us fabric outright, or they were collecting them from other people, because once people found out you were making masks, believe me, they were. And this is quilters quality fabric, so it isn't cheap fabric, and it was good. And it was almost like I made those, and we were distributing them. We were distributing them obviously to chemo, to radiation oncology. We were distributing them to the food banks. We were distributing them to bodegas. We were distributing them to people in places who wouldn't have access to them otherwise. And the reason for that, and I'll say this, it speaks to your issue of the minister. My friend Abu Tariq, who's IDAS's designee to sort of be he takes me on my errands. And the pandemic happens, and you could not find elastic to save your life. Everybody had taken it. So I decided I'm going to be creative. Let us go to each and every single CVS, Walmart, so I broke my rule about going to public places, to find basically hair bands, and like large hair bands, because you can cut those up and put them around, and they would be somewhat reinforced around the ear. So literally we were going store to store to store to store, and within a certain mile radius, and dyeing up every single piece of hair band stuff that you could find. And nobody else had thought to do that yet. And I wasn't going to tell anybody I was doing that because I didn't want them taking my supply. Mm-hmm. And sort of like wiping out the supplies before we got there. That was very bad of me. I'm sorry. I'm probably going to go to hell for that. Anyway, so we were at a CVS on Norfolk Court Street. And that's an area that has some... there's a riverbank that's near there. And there's some subsidized housing. And there was an older man in line. So I'm waiting in line, and everybody's socially distancing. And I had a mask I had made. And I had some masks I had made, but not a lot. So I was on a mission, and I hadn't yet made all of those masks. And the woman behind the counter, the cashier, and I both had masks on. And this older man was in front of us in line. And he turned to me and he turned to her. Now, mind you, I look like Cancer Woman at that point because I had like the Albert Einstein here. There was very little that was there. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of like straggling out from under the hat. So clearly something's up with me. And I'm pale and all that other stuff. And she's working. And he starts freaking out. Where can I get a mask? And had I had a mask to give him, I would have given him. For real, I would have given it to him. He was that distressed, and it distressed me so much. And that's why I went home and make masks. But to finish the story, he started going on about how, where can I get a mask? Why can't I get a mask? Why do you have a mask and I don't? I explained, I'm going to be making masks, sir, if you give me an address, which is stupid because I don't think he had one. I'll send you a mask. I'll drop them off. And I actually volunteered to bring them to Office for Aging if he could go there so he could pick some up. She said these are the ones, they only get a handful. And they were in short supply then. They were in short supply. I know that because I have friends in the hospital. And how do you have enough masks for everybody throughout the hospital for all the procedures they do and you're supposed to change them as you go in and out of rooms and all that other stuff? So he's freaking out because he has cardiac, and so he starts going down the listing of all the things he had. And I felt for him. It was gut-wrenching to hear and to feel like you couldn't do anything about it. Hurt my heart. I mean, literally hurt my heart. So if you don't think I was on a mission, okay, this is probably where I don't want to admit that I did this. That whole lying thy own mission thing. We sort of established that rule after this. We're not doing that anymore. And one of the things I would do when I have support hose on right now under my legs, just on my legs, because they do have a history of congestive heart failure, and I am compliant, blah blah blah. So I do wear them, and I'm not supposed to sit with my legs down like this, but I am, whatever. You can't sew on a sewing machine with your legs up. It just doesn't work because I have a foot pedal and I can't feel my foot anyway. Well, that's another story. So I'm literally sewing. My friend is cutting the fabric for me. We have the quilt shop that is getting the donations from everywhere. People are literally leaving fabric on their front porch, and it's for face masks, and they knew who people were that were making it. And it was like, and they were distributing it. And my friend would also drop it off. So he'd be cutting in all this other stuff. And I'd be sewing. For like, more than an hour or two at a time, like, up to 8 to 10 hours a day. And your legs are going, and I'd be like, and you'd be like, how you doing? And I'd be like on bed with my legs elevated. Because I'm like, oh, I'm so screwed. And you had to gauge when you were going to go see cardiac next and don't be stupid kind of deal. Honestly, I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was for the right reason. People were dying. I knew that. I knew people who died. I know people who died. It wasn't anything to play with. I understand what you're saying in terms of will of Allah. And I don't disagree with that. But with that being said, yeah, I'll help. I'll try to help to prevent, so can you bypass over here? Thanks. Anyway, long-winded answer to story. In terms of things that might be hard to see on my end, I was very conscious of when you came this time that you would be looking at me with a different eye. That now I've been off chemo for this length of time. There's certain things we're trying to get through here at the house. One of those things, some of like your Dava's books and papers and things, because when he first passed, there were things that, like his clothes and things, donate those. I can't, if people can use them, use them. But also look at the house and how it's set up, and is there a better way of setting it up for me so that it is safer, so that I can get to things more easily, that I don't have to stress out or have more difficulty than I need to. Because my other obligation as a mom, I'm going to worry you. I have cancer, okay? And I have all those laundry list of those dowdy types that are now related. And while I may be a unicorn, I am not infallible. Yeah, I absolutely know that I've taken a hit from chemo. I know that I've been beaten up in the ring. I put myself there voluntarily. I am good with that. I have taken a hit. So I have tried to reel it back as much as I can in terms of the consequence. But there are some valves you cannot unring. And I don't control that. And we also talked yesterday in terms of I can't live in that space of being afraid. I am here for me, as well as for you, for us, as well as for the folks that I hold dear in my tribe, in my family. And I know I am a community project. I know that. I am grateful I am a community project, and I know you get comfort out of that, as did your father, because he saw that. He saw the love. He saw the care. I may talk funny, but I must speak well enough that people can understand enough that they know I do care, and I do value what they mean to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to worry you. I don't want to worry you, but I also know I can't help that. The same way as you worry me. That's what you do when you care for somebody.
Yeah, that whole letting go of control thing, you and Bob are so great with that. Mm-hmm.
I didn't ask you a question about that, so I don't know that that's on the table for here.
We have to make prayer too.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty and for sharing. Thank you also for being my son. And thank you for being a mentor. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you for being my mom. My ma.
And,
My ma. Alhamdulillah.
I love you, big head.
I love you too, bigger head.
I love you.
Love you too, ma.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Bye.
Bye.
Holla.
Holla.
Word.
Word.
Night, baby.
We're not going anywhere. We're right.
Tonight to the audience.
They might watch it during the day.
Okay, Google search later. Gracie. Say goodnight, Gracie. Good night, Gracie. Google search it. Don't worry. It'll make more sense.
No, right. Thank y'all for watching. Make sure if you like the video, make sure you like the video down below. Leave a comment so we know what you think. Share it with your folks. And I'll see you next time. It's your man, SoulMan IT. I'm Outski. Peace.
Bye.